Hello, hello, hello. How's everyone doing? Let me expand my screen here. How are you guys all doing? Send me a quick thumbs up. Send me a little chat, a hi. Just send me something that you are on and that you are live and that you can hear me. Um, this is awesome. It's a fun Tuesday evening, 7 p.m., right on the nose. We are going live. Hope everyone's had a good evening and had dinner already this evening. Getting ready to settle in for the evening. Send me a quick hello. Send me who is on. What is your name? Kind of where you're from. Let's make a few intros real quick. Get to know each other a little bit. See how you guys are doing. Say hi to me. Say hi. Let me know who's on. Um, Hopefully everyone's had dinner and I have gotten my kids settled in and they finished their dinner and they're all doing homework right now. And my daughter's actually going to soccer right now. So I try to kind of jam pack and get everything done so I can log on right at 7 p.m. So send me a quick shout out, send me a thumbs up if you can hear me. If you guys, where you're from, tell me your names. I would love to hear who's on and where you're from. And then we can just get started. We have so much to cover today. I got so many questions that I have been trying to write them all down. So you might see me refer to my notes and look at my notes today because there's so many questions that we've got to try and answer in the lives. First of all, I have to say thank you for the feedback. Last week, it seems like everyone loved the lives and everyone said, let's do more. And I'm happy to keep this, regular thing if you guys want every Tuesday night to do a 7 p.m. live and answer as many questions. I mean, I have a long journey that is spanning so many years. And I know most of you guys out there listening have just as much of a story. So, we can do this as long as you guys want every Tuesday night at the same time, same place. Um, and hopefully that helps everyone else. But I see quite a few people are on. This is great. Again, shoot me a comment, tell me thumbs up, where you're from, who's on. Would love to just say hi and get an idea where everyone is signing in from. And if you're in the same time zone too, I'm in the East Coast time, so if you're in the same time zone or if you're in West Coast, it's probably like 4 p.m. for you guys. And I was just saying earlier on, like I just finished all my kids' dinners and cleanups and sent my daughter off to soccer. Um, settling in for the evening. But anyways, let's get started. Looks like there's already quite a few people on, and I had said I have a lot of questions that need to be answered. And I want to try to get to as many as we can, just so we can kind of maximize this time. So I want to make this disclaimer, which I did last time too. I am not a physician. I am a physical therapist who has been practicing the principles of functional medicine for over 15 years. And uh, about, I want to say quite a few years ago, got a lot of certifications, all my CEUs, everything has been in the functional medicine arena, and had always been considering, getting the functional medicine practitioner certification through IFM. And then I fell really sick. And I was pretty sick for a little over 4 years, maybe actually 5 years. So, quite a while. I was pretty sick for quite a while, and it just kind of complicated things in my life. I kind of mentioned this last time that, I was bedridden for a really long time. Almost 5 months, I was completely bedridden. And for about a year, I was completely housebound and not driving. And, um, I was this PT physical therapist who worked out for, gosh, 15, 17 years of my life. I worked out almost every single day and didn't take a year off or a month off or anything. I was just a very, very fit, active, vibrant, energetic person. And out of the blue came this chronic illness, and a lot of it was stress related. We went through a very stressful time for about a year and a half, and a lot of it was very stress related for me. And I kind of mentioned this last time a little bit, so for those of you that heard this last week, I apologize. But it looks like we've got a lot of new members today. And I was sick for a really long time. And initially, I went through the whole conventional medicine route for about 8 months. I saw two hepatologists, two endocrinologists, two OBGYNs, two rheumatologists, and different medical centers, and trying to get answers. I must have gotten every test out there: MRI, CT scans, pulmonology consults. I saw two pulmonologists, stress tests. Every test that you could possibly think of. I went through multiple ultrasounds, and they couldn't find anything wrong with me. It was just eye-opening, especially since both my husband and I are in the medical field, and we were just shocked. And so this ended up being a really, really long, drawn-out journey for me. And after 8 months, I decided to go back to my roots, which is more of the functional medicine arena, and started to try and get answers that way. And my first functional medicine practitioner that I worked with her for about 5 months, and ended up getting so many different diagnoses from her. But she diagnosed me with, SIRS, and diagnosed me with mast cell, and already had been diagnosed with chronic fatigue and fibromyalgia from the endocrinologist, from the rheumatologist. Had already gotten, these cocktails of diagnoses that no one could really figure out. In my opinion, they were just kind of cop outs. They didn't really know what was going on with me. But and so ultimately, the functional medicine doctor kind of diagnosed me with CIRS, chronic inflammatory response syndrome, and a bunch of other host of other diagnoses. And of course, I had a very leaky gut from all the stress that we had gone through, and just a bunch of issues that were going on with me. Ultimately, I only worked with her for about 5 months because she ended up going on medical leave herself. Unfortunately, she was pretty sick as well. And, then I went down the Cascade for about 6 months, and I worked with a SIRS specialist who is pretty well known in the country. And for about 6 months straight, he did the Shoemaker protocol with me. And I did okay. I tolerated it poorly, but I still did okay. Um, and I just have a lot of sensitivities, especially because of my mast cell. I was exhibiting a lot of sensitivities, even to the Shoemaker protocol. And we had to take it really slow. And, I think by February of that year, after 6 months, I gave up, and I just, decided that I needed to take matters in my own hands. And so then I ended up doing a 6 day water only fast. And if you haven't watched my previous live, please watch the previous live where I really talk in detail about the water only fast. I was monitored by a fantastic DO down in West Palm Beach. I did not do it cold turkey. One of my dearest, dearest friends, he's a world renowned naturopathic doctor as well as a DO, and he was monitoring me throughout. And just with my own knowledge, I kind of knew how to check my blood pressure. I would check my ketone levels. I would check my glucose levels, and I knew all the signs to look out for. So, this is not something that I'm recommending to just go out and do a water only fast, because you really need to be medically monitored. And so I did end up doing this 6 day water only fast and 3 day juice cleanse, and it was a game changer for me. Just game changer, really helped me heal, really started helping me get, a lot of my energy back, and started helping me get a lot of my cognition back, which I had really lost quite a bit. Um, it just started giving me life again. And I was about, I would say, at least 40% better from that water only fast. Um, and I know what people say when you're so sick, and especially in my case, I had severe adrenal fatigue, like grade 3 or level 3, as they call it, even border level 4. I think I was like a 3B or something. Um, and so, of course, you have to be closely monitored. But that was definitely a game changer for me. And then the DO down in West Palm Beach, he ended up putting me on immune modulators that made a huge difference in my immune system. And as all of us that are very chronically ill, this is really a big factor for us. Big factor is our immune system. Our immune system is completely out of whack, hypersensitive, overly sensitive, and then responding in this constant fight or flight type of situation, and just responding in a negative manner to our own bodies, and really just fighting with our own bodies and keeping us sick. So I think that was also another game changer for me. And he had me on a very good regimen of supplements, and then some of my own stuff that I was doing. I talked a lot about this last time in the live, and you guys can listen to that. I mean, I talked about all the modalities and treatments that I did in the course of those 4 or 5 years. I mean, I did everything out there. I did PEMF, I did ozone, I did infrared, I did sauna, I did hyperbaric chambers, I did cryotherapy, cold plunges, magnesium baths all the time, detox baths. I mean, I don't think there's a treatment out there that I really didn't try. And so I talk a lot about those in the previous live. And so, yeah, you can listen to that. But, anyways, long story short, I then had a terrible knee surgery that went pretty bad, even though I was doing pretty good. And in July of that year, had knee surgery. Couldn't heal at all from this knee surgery, was doing very, very poorly. Probably part of because of my inflammatory issues, probably because part of, just what the surgeon thought I didn't have. And so it ended up just being a long, complicated, drawn out, recovery that lasted another 6 to 7 months, which really shouldn't have been the case, but I suffered with that too. And then, ultimately, September of that year, my functional medicine doctor, the new one that I had started working with, ended up putting me on LDN, low dose naltrexone. If you haven't seen it or look it up, just LDN. There's a lot of Facebook groups for it that you can join, and there's a lot of information out there on the LDN research group. And that was definitely a game changer. That was when I started getting my life back, that remainder of the 30-40% that was left. I was able to exercise again. I was walking the dog again, and really just started dealing with the long-term fatigue and muscle aches and pains. And so then that I talked about all that story last time too, about that, and then stopping the LDN, and completely crashing in January of that year because I just stopped it, and that wasn't a good idea. I was having a lot of side effects. So long story short, I got back on it, and it's been great since then. And I tell this story again, just there's quite a few new people that are on, but I tell this story multiple times because I really want people to understand that I have been through it all. I have been through the ringer and back. I get what you're going through. I understand to the core of my existence what you are going through and how difficult this process is. As I said, I was this very, very energetic, super bubbly, 100 miles a minute kind of person who had businesses and working as a PT and nonprofits and 3 kids and like just go, 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 and was leveled one day. And I was horizontal for about 5 months. So I get it. I've been there, I've done that. I had access to the most world renowned doctors, functional medicine doctors, naturopaths, osteopaths, chiropractors. Myself having a functional medicine background that I had practiced for 15 years and access to every treatment and every modality out there. And it still took every day of me fighting, every day of not giving up, every day of just saying, I will wake up tomorrow morning and I will do the same thing over again. And most of my treatments took about 3 to 4 hours of my day. And then by then you're wiped out, and by then you need to eat healthy. And I had to shut down one of my businesses. I had to really cut down on my charity work, but it became a full-time job. I was still working as a PT, but it became a full-time job. So I say all of this to anyone who signed on today who wants to listen to this story, again and again. I have been there. I have done this. I have been through the ringer and back. And I made a vow to myself that, I'd been dragging my feet. I had been doing all the functional medicine courses and CEUs and things like that for 15 years. I just didn't know that I could, if I could do it and become a practitioner and get certified and things like that. And so this was probably, the gentle butt kick GBK that I needed to get me down this path and to say, get it done, woman, because once you get this done, you can start helping others. And I did mention this earlier on, but I was lucky enough to have access to all these physicians. They're friends of mine. I had access and resources to all these treatments, which I know most people don't. And I still suffered. And I still had such a tough time. So I made it my mission that when I got better, I would start the IFM certification program to become a functional medicine certified practitioner, and then I would help people. And so I'm halfway through. I'm very happy to say I'm more than halfway through at this point. It's a very long road, but I hope to get there soon and, officially have that license. So all this to just say, I'm there, I've been there, I've done that, I feel it, I feel you, I know what you're going through, and just hang in there. Just hang in there. Don't give up hope. Every day, if you saw my live last week, I had had a few busy days, and then I did the live, and that was my first time ever getting on camera, doing a live. So as you can imagine, it's a lot of stress, it's a lot of just like pressure. And for someone, like us who is in this situation, that's a lot of physical exertion for us. And the next day, I made a video on the page. You can go check it out. But it took every ounce in me to go take my dog for a walk because I was exhausted. Um, I was beat. And so, I say this because I'm still, one of you guys, and I'm still that same person who now has healed quite a bit. But there is days that I'll have, good days and bad days. So today was an amazing day for me. Amazing. I actually did a very intense Pilates class. I mean, she kicked our butt today. I don't know what she was thinking, but it was one of the most intense Pilates classes I've done. And so I'm going to need to sleep a little extra tonight. I'm going to need to take some extra magnesium tonight. Maybe even do a magnesium bath before bed. So it's an ongoing process. It's not that you're healed and then you just completely give up, or you just go back to your old lifestyle. It's an ongoing process, and I was very proud of myself. I really did an intense class today. And that's after I walked about 2 miles yesterday, actually about 1.5 miles yesterday with my dog on the trail, which was a pretty tough walk. It took me about 30 minutes. I was wiped out afterwards. And the day before, I did a 3.5 mile bike ride with my kids on that same trail. It's a pretty difficult trail. So Sunday I did this 3.5 mile, bike ride on the trail. And then Monday I walked my dog for about 1.5 miles. And then today I did this intense Pilates class. And so I know some of you are listening going, oh, this is what I want to do. And I can tell you, as a PT who has worked out prior to my illness, who had worked out about 17 plus years of my life every single day, of course with a rest day, but that is all I wanted to get back to. That is all I wanted to do. And it took me a long time. It took me a very long time to get there. But don't give up hope. You will get there. You will heal and you will have energy again, and you will be able to go out there and walk your dog and exercise and get back to a lot of stuff. With a caveat, of course, we won't get back full force, but you'll be able to get back to pretty much a lot of the stuff you're doing, because I am a walking, talking, living example for you, that is possible. So I hope this catches up people that just joined this week and missed last week, or that are just new to the page. I've been trying to put as much information as I can on the page. This is a daily work in progress. So I'm sure tomorrow I'm going to want to walk my dog. Every ounce of me is going to want to walk this dog. But I need to rest. I need to really let my mind do the thinking and listen to my body. I've had 3 very intense physical days. Um, and as you know, for people like us, like we need to be careful. So as much as I want to do an intense walk tomorrow with my dog around the neighborhood, which is very hilly, um, I'm going to probably force myself to do some qigong and do some, tai chi maybe, or just really breath work and meditate and have a rest day tomorrow. So again, work in progress all the time. This is not a walk in the park by any means, but you can get there. You will get there. And just keep working hard. Um, so having said that, my goodness, there's people here that are signed in at midnight. Good for you, Elizabeth. This is real dedication. And then there's someone from Edmonton. It's 5 p.m. there. Very, very nice of you to join us. Jacqueline, you're asking if you can ask questions here. If you've already asked it prior, and I believe I do have your question already written down, but I will try to get to as many questions as I can. Just from last week when I posted the live Q&A poster, we've had so many questions and got a whole bunch today as well. So let's get to it. Let's get to some of the questions, and hopefully, we can answer as many as possible. So I got 3 questions on this, and it was about detox. What are the detox methods you've used? What do you feel is the most effective detox methods? I just kept getting questions about detox. So I will tell you this. In the functional medicine world, especially, there's phase 1, phase 2, phase 3 detox systems, and I'm sure if you're on a bunch of pages, you've read about some of these detox systems, um, or phases, but phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, you really need your phase 2 detox to be working more and more efficiently and first before you even get to phase 1. And why is that? Because if you do phase 1 detox and your phase 2, which is your elimination detox pathways, they are not working, then you are going to poison your body again. You're going to have the toxins just circulating over and over in your body. So you really need to make sure that your phase 2 detox pathways are open before you do phase 1. So for those of you that don't know, okay, so what is phase 1? Phase 1 is like, we are getting toxins every single day in our body, every single day. We are getting xenoestrogens, we are getting pesticides, we are getting hormones if you're taking birth control, we are getting alcohol, pollutants. We're getting so much stuff in our body every single day. And phase 1 is when your body makes them, these are all fat soluble, and your body breaks them down from fat soluble and makes them into water soluble compounds. So phase 1 is just, imagine all that junk coming into your body, and then your body just breaking it down and tearing it apart, so that it's not harmful and it doesn't sit in your fat cells and in your liver. So phase 1 is just breaking them all apart. Phase 2 is when the toxins are out of the fat cells and they're dissolvable in water. So then your immune system can neutralize them, and it binds them with molecules to excrete them out of your body. So it takes that broken down junk, slime and all of that stuff, which is now water soluble, it takes it out through the kidneys, through your GI tract, through sweating, through the gallbladder. So it really combines it and packages it and takes it out. And each phase has its own nutrients that it needs. So for example, phase 1, to break down these toxins, to break it down into water-soluble compounds, what do you need? Vitamin C. You need the B vitamins like B6, B12, milk thistle, cruciferous vegetables like cauliflower and broccoli, sulforaphanes, or you can take sulforaphane tablets as well. And then magnesium and iron are very critical for phase 1. So phase 2, what do you need to break down these substances? Glutathione, one of the master detoxifiers in the body. And if your body's not naturally producing it, like me, I had no glutathione at the time, and I could not tolerate glutathione as well. It gave me severe right upper quadrant pain. And so I had to find other channels, but phase 2 needs nutrients like, or vitamins and supplements like glutathione, sulforaphane, even amino acids. But again, you have to have your phase 2 channels open before you do phase 1. What are phase 2 channels? Like, how can I've had people tell me over and over, friends of mine, myself, I've had people tell me, and they're so proud of it, I haven't used deodorant in 15 years. And it's not because they're trying to avoid toxins and chemicals, it's because they don't need it anymore. And I didn't need it for a very, very long time. I was like, oh, I don't need deodorant anymore. I hardly sweat. That is a bad idea. We need to sweat. We need to get these toxins out. So, what are phase 2 channels that have to be open for detoxification to occur? So, bowel movements. You have to have very regular bowel movements at least once, if not twice a day, but at least once. And there's a thing. It's a pill that I use. It's called Oxy Powder, that I don't use anymore. But when I was really detoxing and using a lot of these detox protocols, I'll put it in the link later on. But it's Oxy Powder, very natural, very holistic, very organic powder that is used for eliminating, especially if you have constipation. Um, Actually, I think a lot of biohackers lately have been talking about it, and Dave Asprey recently talked about oxy powder as well. And then what's another channel? Urine. Make sure you're drinking plenty, plenty of water because that is detoxifying. Saunas. I did a lot of saunas, and I still continue to do saunas. Like on a day like today, where I've had a very intense Pilates class, I will come home and I will get my infrared sauna blanket that I have to really just help with some detoxing. Coffee enemas, very, very great ways to open your detox channels. And the thing with coffee enemas is it also boosts your own glutathione production in the liver. So you're really not only helping phase 2 elimination, but you're also helping some of phase 1. Binders, like charcoal binders, things like that, to really help take those waste products, package them, and take them out. Lymph massages are a great tool for opening phase 2 channels. You get the lymph fluid moving. At my peak, when I was very, very sick and I felt very stagnant and everything hurt, and I would just get a lymph massage, or I would do it on myself too, a little bit harder to do, but the lymph, once it's flowing and moving, it's not stagnant, so you can get it out of there. And then rebounder and trampoline, I talked a little bit about this last time. And infrared blanket, I talked about this as well, just to kind of really open your detox channels. Then phase 3, of course, is the kidneys, where you urinate all the toxins out. The GI system, when you have a bowel movement. Sweat, when you excrete it out, it's very, very important to then sweat it out. And especially if you do a sauna and you really sweat out those toxins, take a shower right away. If you do a magnesium detox bath, I think I gave the recipe last time too, but magnesium, which is Epsom salt, and hydrogen peroxide and baking soda, and then that's your detox bath. And as soon as you get out of that detox bath, take a shower right away, get all those toxins out because they've been excreted through your pores. So I hope that answers the question about detox. It is a question that we get very, very frequently. And yes, detox is very important, but you can make yourself very sick if you don't have your channels open. You can get very, very sick with just circulating the toxins around again and again in your body. So make sure you're doing phase 2, you're doing all the elimination routes first, you're opening all the channels and sweating it out and pores and everything like that, and then you're working on phase 1. So Mylon asked about infrared and what I use. I am not affiliated with this company at all. I use Joovv, 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 and I love my Joovv light. You can buy the small compact ones. You can buy, the big, almost full size ones. I bought mine a couple years ago when they were coming out with the next generation. I think they were coming out with like 3.0 or something. So they really had a massive sale on the 2.0s because they're expensive. And so I bought mine when they were phasing a certain generation out. I can't remember what generation it is. Maybe it's 2.0 they were phasing out. And so I bought my Joovv then, and it's been awesome for me. I think I use that at least 5 times a week. And so, what are the benefits? This is red light, infrared. What are the benefits? You can look up. There's PubMed articles on this. There is research and data and a lot of stuff out there on this. What are the benefits of red light therapy? Number one, and most important, especially for me, this is something I really needed, was that it decreases inflammation. When you are so sick and you're chronically sick, you have so much systemic inflammation. It is not inflammation like, oh, in your joint and I'm going to take Advil. It is a systemic inflammation within your body. And in my case, that's probably what shut down my ovaries completely, which is why I was diagnosed with premature ovarian failure, was inflammation. And as soon as I was able to take care of the inflammation with the immune modulators and then later on with the LDN, um, my hormone levels started coming back up. It was just like clockwork. It was magical. So inflammation is a big, big killer. It is the cause of most diseases: diabetes, Parkinson's, Alzheimer's, cardiovascular disease. And so inflammation is something that we have to take care of. You can take care of inflammation in many other ways, like eating a very clean diet, organic food, things like that. But the red light and the infrared light definitely helps with decreasing inflammation. The other thing that it's called photo biomodulation, which is infrared and red light therapy. The other thing that it helps with is just mental acuity, like really strengthening, your mental acuity, which, as you all know, that the cognitive decline that comes with chronic illness, the lack of mathematical abilities, the word finding. I've been there. Speech problems. I mean, I've been through all of it. And so infrared light, they do tout it as really helping with mental acuity. Um, it helps with detox because it, helps with detox channels and opening up phase two. It really increases your sleep and your circadian rhythm to balance out your sleep patterns. And so they say that you should really first thing in the morning get up and do the infrared, because when you expose yourself to that red light within the first like 20 minutes of waking up, it does wonders for your circadian rhythm, and your body knows that it's daylight and daytime, and then you're able to go to sleep better at night. I can't do it first thing in the morning. I have 3 kids that I have got to get breakfast and out the door, and so for me mornings are really hard, so I end up doing it at night right before bed, and that seems to help me a lot. But it also helps me a lot when I do it in the evening, because I am sore during the, from my exercise or whatever workout or whatever I've done throughout the day. And so I am really sore. And so for me, that's very helpful to do it in the evening as well. There's studies out there, there's actually data on this, that, red light and infrared therapy, they actually have a control group, and then they have a group that was doing the infrared light. And I think it was like, don't quote me exactly, but it was like they were able to increase estradiol production by 70%. So it helps improve your estrogen and your hormonal balance when you do the infrared light. And of course, it gives you very clean, glowing skin, and it helps improve blood flow. So, those are just a few of the basics why I use it. It's been very helpful for me, especially for muscle soreness. And like I said, not affiliated with the company at all, but I've used Joovv and I'm pretty happy with it. So I hope that answers your question, my little one. Jacqueline, you asked, symptoms became worse after COVID in January. It's gotten worse each month, and I can't work and do much of anything these days. What do you do for that? So Jacqueline, I'm sorry you're going through so much, and I just COVID is an all around, all system affecting disease. I don't know if you watched my first live that I did last week, but I did talk a little bit about this. And, the initial stages of COVID, when we first found out about COVID, and there's studies on this, and there's some articles on this about how about the first initial 200 to 300 people were all dying after contracting COVID, was because it was really affecting their adrenals. And then I guess over time they realized that these adrenals are being affected pretty drastically, so they started giving COVID patients steroids, and that really helped decrease the mortality rate. So I can tell you this for a fact that, you know, COVID is a very inflammatory disease, a very inflammatory virus. And so not only does it increase your systemic inflammation, it increases what they call now the cytokine storm. And so once these cytokines are all over your body, it's a very inflammatory process. It affects your GI tract, it affects your musculoskeletal system, it affects your lungs, your pulmonary system, your cardiovascular system. So your heart is not pumping as much blood, and then it takes out the adrenals. And as you know, once if you it takes out your adrenals and you don't have cortisol, you are pretty much bedridden. This was my case. This is what happened to me. There was no COVID back then, 5 years ago or whatever it was, but there was no COVID back then. But whatever the inflammatory process was took my adrenals out, and I was bedridden for 5 months, 6 months. So it sounds like, Jacqueline, and I hope you're working with a functional medicine practitioner to kind of help you navigate through all of this. But it sounds like you really need to work on your adrenals, just for starters, to get your energy levels back up. Um, and what are some of the basic things that you can do for your adrenals is, I've talked about this before, but going out first thing in the morning, getting sunlight within, first 15 to 30 minutes of waking up, and then just walking on the bare ground, not cement, not, your driveway, not the tarmac road, on grass. Go out and get grass right off the bat, the ground. And you can look this up. It's called Earthing, the movie. Really helps with the inflammatory process, and it's a whole theory behind it and scientific explanation of electrons and charges and all of that. But those are some of the inexpensive free things you're doing. It sounds like you're saying that you've gotten worse and you can't do much of anything else. You're homebound. I believe you said that you couldn't work anymore. Then give it a shot. Get up in the morning, go out in the sunlight every morning, stand on the ground, on grass, and just give yourself 10 to 15 minutes. And then the other thing for the adrenals is really need good amount of supplements, especially vitamin C was very, very helpful for me. Vitamin C, zinc, quercetin, and then I did lemon water and salt every single morning. That is called an adrenal cocktail. And for people whose adrenals have really been damaged or affected, it's one of the most, helpful concoctions out there. People swear by adrenal cocktails, which is lemon water, salt, and some cream of tartar, which is potassium. So you're really getting the vitamin C in the lemon, you're getting the sodium in the salt, and then you're getting potassium in the cream of tartar. It definitely helped me. And even now on days like definitely tomorrow morning, since I've worked out 3 days in a row, pretty intense physical activity, I will probably start my day again with lemon water and salt tomorrow morning. Just to kind of, help my adrenals out and support them a little bit. Jacqueline, I don't know if you're working with a physician who's got you on any kind of um, adaptogens. Like ashwagandha is actually very, very helpful. There's a few other things, rhodiola and ginseng and ginkgo and things like that, which again, you have to work with a practitioner to help you guide, the correct way to take them. Glandulars are very, very popular. Glandulars are the actual ground up adrenals of bovine, so like cows and things like that, and they ground them up and dry them in pill form, and then you just take the glandulars, and it's supposed to really help with your adrenals. And so those are really things to look into. Work with a practitioner who will kind of prescribe adaptogens and ashwagandha and things like that, even holy basil at nighttime for sleep, but it also helps your adrenals quite a bit. I still till this day take the holy basil. I will put the link in the comment section of the live. For the same company that I used to use, the oxy powder, I use their holy basil and I love it. It's completely natural, organic, holistically grown. And then the other thing that they are now finding with a lot of COVID and long hauler syndrome is hyperbaric oxygen chambers. Apparently, I did hyperbaric years ago, maybe 3, 4 years ago, for my illness and my chronic illness and all the stuff that I was going through. But now they are finding that it is very, very helpful for chronic illness and long haulers from COVID. So I'm not sure if you have the resources and the access to hyperbaric oxygen treatments, but those are really supposed to help. But I really, really recommend, Jacqueline, for you to work with an IFM, Institute of functional medicine practitioner. And then the other thing too is because COVID is so inflammatory, they really need to start addressing your gut, and just things with glutamine and really addressing the inflammation in the gut and the leaky gut can have a lot of these symptoms that you're talking about where you're pretty much bedridden and having a severe inflammatory response going on. So I think that would be also beneficial for you. I mean, there's so many things, Jacqueline, that I could get into, but for me, these are the things that kind of jump out at me right now. Um, Gosh, there's so many more questions here. I'll try to get to all of them. I'll just get to the ones from last week. Linda posted a question about thyroid, adrenals, and cortisol, is what she mentioned. And not sure if she just mentioned it, and not sure if you know or not, but those are very connected. It's called the OAT axis, ovarian, adrenal, thyroid axis. And it's like a three-legged stool. So imagine a stool, which, a bar stool that has three legs. If one of the legs even is loose or falls off, then you are not going to be able to keep that stool upright. You will not have the balance that you need. And so it absolutely needs to be balanced in all aspects to have hormonal balance. So I've told you guys, quite a few times about my story last time and this time, but I will get into a part here that I'm going to really specify about. So kind of like Jacqueline was mentioning, I was completely bedridden. All of a sudden, bedridden, 5 months, couldn't exercise, couldn't empty a dishwasher, couldn't walk, couldn't anything, completely horizontal. And when I had that episode, I think I mentioned to you guys, I saw multiple specialties and different doctors, and I ended up seeing two endocrinologists, and one of them, the second one, was dear friend of mine. And she said, Zankna, come on in, like, I've got to see you, what is going on? And so she did all my thyroid panel, testing and all of that. And at the time, my TSH showed up higher than it had ever been for the last few years. Because every time I got my physical, they would check my TSH, and it was pretty good, in the 1.5, 2.0 ranges. And then when she tested me, this is when I was completely sick and bedridden. And so, of course, my adrenals were taken out. My thyroid had gone up quite a bit, like 2.9. Then when I saw her maybe 3 to 5 months later, it went up to like 3.5. It went up to 4. And that was when she said, oh my gosh, I think you need to, 5 is a cutoff, but I think you're showing signs that you're trending upwards. And so she ended up putting me on thyroid meds. She put me on Synthroid, I believe. And I could only tolerate that for maybe 4 weeks. I was not able to tolerate it at all. So then she put me on a different one, levothyroxine or something like that, and she put me on different meds, and I couldn't tolerate that at all. And by that point, I had already done this 8 months of this ringer, so I knew that I really needed to be treated from a functional medicine perspective. But that was my first learning experience, real life. Now, I learned it all in theory about the OAT axis and ovarian adrenal thyroid axis, but I've never had thyroid problems. I've never had my numbers obviously go that high that they had in just those 6 months. And so for me, this told a very clear story that my adrenals were taken out. And because one leg of that stool was broken, then it was affecting the other two legs, and I was not standing. So if any of these is out of balance, it affects the entire circuit. And though you guys are aware of this, but the common symptoms of adrenal fatigue are irregular and heavy periods and headaches and hypoglycemia and low blood pressure and irritability. You're completely bedridden, lack of, physical activity. You're unable to tolerate any physical exertion, water retention, weight gain, easily falling sick, and you know the symptoms as well, or you probably address the symptoms of hyperthyroidism or hypothyroidism. So when you've got all these symptoms going on, instead of just doing band-aid, patchwork for your thyroids and putting on thyroid meds or for your adrenals, you really have to see and treat the system as a whole. And of course, from the functional medicine perspective, the first thing they're going to work on is your gut because of the inflammation in your gut, because of everything that the inflammatory process that basically made your gut very leaky. It opened up the pores and now stuff is going through and then your body's reacting to it. So from the functional medicine perspective, that's the first thing they're going to work on. But the next set of things that they're going to work on is, obviously your cortisol. They test your cortisol. They will test your thyroid, and really start to work with you on those aspects. What can you do at home if you don't have access to this or unable to afford, a lot of these treatments? Then you have to heal your thyroid and your adrenals. How can you do that? Um, Again, the grounding, the sun first thing in the morning, some very good supplements basic supplements that you can be on, from vitamin C. I think I talked about it earlier about vitamin C, zinc, quercetin, things like that. Magnesium is critical, iron, those kinds of things. And then, avoid stimulants, avoid coffee completely. I gave up coffee for, I believe, 4 years. If you saw my post on the page 2 or 3 days ago, I finally got a decaf cappuccino after, gosh, maybe 6, 8 months. I had completely given up coffee because it's very overly stimulating to an already stressed out adrenal gland. And so avoid stimulants, get 8 hours of sleep. It is critical that you get 8 hours of sleep to heal your body, to heal these organs that are struggling and that are strained right now. Managing your stress levels, very, very critical. You have to manage your stress levels, and bring those stress levels down so your adrenals are not constantly firing and producing, and they're already stressed out and they're already exhausted. And then, of course, like I mentioned, the 4-point cortisol test, very important to see what level of adrenal fatigue, and if you need, what kind of adaptogens do you need? Do you need some that'll ramp you up? Or do you need some that'll kind of bring down the cortisol response? And then for thyroid tests, I was having a discussion with someone today online, and they said, "Oh, my doctor does TSH, every year." Well, unfortunately, TSH is not a good marker, especially if that's the only thing that's being done. If you even go to your regular physician, primary care physician, they need to be doing your TSH, your T3, your reverse T3, your T4, reverse T4, and then your thyroid antibodies. And these give you a better indicator of where your thyroid is. Versus, just doing your TSH, which is correct, like it'll show up over time, but it's too late at that point. You really need to see the other things, and you need to see your thyroid antibodies, to really catch this in the early phases. I've made this joke before, and my friends laugh at me quite a bit. When you go to the doctor and they tell you, "Oh, you're borderline diabetic," or, "Oh, you're borderline thyroid, we're just going to wait and watch." Wait and watch what? What are you waiting and watching? You need to change this scenario very quickly, not wait and watch until a year from now when I come back. You're going to put me on diabetes meds. You're going to put me on thyroid meds. There's no waiting and watching. At that point, changes have, your body's already trying to tell you that these numbers are increasing, these things are looking off track a little bit. Start making the changes, start exercising, start changing your diet, start eating very clean, bring your insulin resistance down, bring your fasting insulin down. We're not going to wait and watch. We're not going to wait and watch for anything. We are going to be proactive. We're not going to be reactive. Um, if you watched the game yesterday, UNC played Kansas, and it was just, there was a lot of, UNC had to do a lot of defense, and it shouldn't be like that. We should have to, from the beginning, be able to protect ourselves and give your body the tools that it needs to start healing itself. Not let's wait and watch and then come back next year and I'll put you on, metformin, or I'll put you on blood pressure meds, or I'll put you on thyroid meds. It doesn't, that's not how it works. And so, be proactive in your cause, be proactive, educate yourself, and go to your doctor armed with all this information and say, no, I don't want to wait and watch for my thyroid to go up some more. I don't want to wait and watch until I get to the threshold level for you to put me on, Synthroid, or for you to put me on metformin or anything like that. So those are very critical, levels and things to know. Let's see. Let's change gears a little bit. I know we've talked a lot about adrenals and thyroids and COVID. And Amy said, "Can you talk to me about the dosing of LDN?" Um, I want to make this real quick because I did talk quite in detail last week's live about my LDN journey and kind of how I started it. And I did it for 3 months. I ramped up from 1.5 milligrams all the way to 3 milligrams. I ramped that up in about 3 months, and that is a typical course for LDN, where you start low, even ultra low in some cases, zero point 0.1 milligrams or 0.5 milligrams, whatever, but you titrate upwards. And so in my case, my doctor started me at 1.5, and then I titrated upwards to 3.0. I had a lot of side effects, and I was just struggling with it. So after 3 months, my doctor and I decided that maybe it was probably better that I stopped it, which unfortunately was a big mistake. I shouldn't have stopped it. I really crashed. I really crashed that month, and it took all my hormones out of whack again. And so again, I started back up in maybe February, January, end of that year. I started back up, and I started back up at the one. Actually, this time I started at 1.0, so I started even lower. So Amy, your question about LDN dosing is very, very specific to the individual. And I highly recommend, there's, I believe, 2 LDN groups that I'm a part of too, that are very helpful, and they have so much information out there. And each patient is different, and it really depends what your physician wants you on. Like I said, they're now seeing a lot of studies and benefits of ULDN, which is ultra low dose. And so those doses start even at zero point 0.1 or even lower, depending on the patient's sensitivity, and then work your way up to, whatever you can tolerate. I was supposed to go up all the way to 4.5, but I absolutely couldn't tolerate it. And so even the first go round, I did, until 3.0 milligrams or 3 milligrams, and then I stopped. And then even the second go around when I started, I paused at 3 milligrams. Like, for me, that is a pretty good dose. I believe for fibromyalgia and things like that, they highly, the recommended dose, I believe, is 4.5. But I think even now they're finding that that's not the case. And it's very patient dependent, not diagnosis dependent. And, you can really work your way up slowly to the best of your abilities. Hi from New York. Hi, Jesse. Are you taking questions? Do you have, okay, this is David. David is saying, do you do regular labs that you monitor monthly, every few months? And what do you use for regular adrenal support? Oh, thank you for that question. So yes, I, of course, in my journey, when I was really sick, every 6 months we got a very, very long, exhaustive list of blood work that we did. And it included from a basic CMP panel to the entire cholesterol panel, the entire thyroid panel, not just TSH, but T3, T4, reverse T3, T4, and then thyroid antibodies, and then hormones. Hormones was huge for me because my hormones were completely shot with my OAT axis completely being destroyed. So there was a 3-year period, which, like I said, I was diagnosed with premature ovarian failure, and I was only 40 years old at the time. And my body was producing zero hormones on its own. And so those were being monitored. They really check CRP, inflammatory markers, TGF beta for inflammation, they check, C4A for mold. There's quite a few, it's a whole panel. And I believe LabCorp has its own sets of panels that they check for mold, they check for inflammation, things like that. Again, I am a PT, so I cannot prescribe labs. But I know that in the practice of over the years, like we really monitor a lot of these labs, and the physicians that I work with have monitored all these labs. And then all the vitamins, they check all the vitamins, they check your iron, the ferritin, um, they check your magnesium, they check your copper, which is very important for cognitive function and brain development and things like that. What else? I mean, there's quite a few things. It's just I used to get literally, I have pictures. I took pictures of my entire journey because I was so sick and I had no idea what was going on with me. And I honestly, the first 5 to 6 months, I didn't even know if I was going to survive and how I was going to make it through. And so I started documenting. At the time, I never thought that I would, use this or give back at some point. And I just started documenting. I have pictures that entire first year. Every single time I got blood drawn, it was 30 to 40 test tubes at a time, at one time. Each time for those, that one year, I have pictures every single month or second month getting crazy amount of labs, because they were just trying to find something and rule out anything. So, David, to answer your question, it really just depends on your practitioner, on your diagnosis, and what they're looking for. But some of these basic markers, that SED rate, very, very important for inflammation, NCRP, and those kind of things are really important, to be monitored, every 4 months to 6 months. And then in my case, my hormones were being monitored every month. Vitamins and minerals and all of that was about every 6 months. And then what do I use for regular adrenal support? So again, there was a time I was completely bedridden. So at that time, my adrenals needed help and they needed support. So they gave me more stimulating type adaptogens and rhodiola and things like that, just to give me some energy to even sit up or get out of bed. So there's different phases. And then when I had crashed again, they had given me some of the adaptogens again, and some glandulars and things like that. And I am a kind of person that is very, very sensitive to any supplements and can't tolerate anything. This is where part of the mast cell activation comes in for me. I can barely tolerate supplements. So it was quite a 4 or 5 year journey with very patient doctors because I had such side effects. And so ultimately, I just got to a point where I was just taking ashwagandha. That was the best. It was not stimulating and it was not dampening. It was just ashwagandha for me just keeps my cortisol levels, um, you know, it just monitors. It kind of, it's an adaptogen. It adapts to whether I need high or low that day. And so for me, is something that works for me is ashwagandha. Um, Let me see. We've got a few more. Claudia says, I've had over 100 plus symptoms since developing long COVID. The kicker, I can't tolerate supplements, meds, or even saline since due to it triggering porphyria. I am so sorry, Claudia. This is really tough. I mean, I will tell you, it is such a tough battle, for people with chronic illness, and they're already struggling with the inflammatory conditions in their body and the cytokine storm and exactly all of that going on, and then to be hit by COVID. It is devastating to your system, and it just takes your system out. And the only thing I can say is time. Give it time. I hope that you are working again with a good functional medicine practitioner and that they are really monitoring a lot of these things. But I really feel this is something that I feel that the adrenals need to be addressed, specifically with people with long COVID. And I did talk a little earlier on, Claudia, about when Jacqueline, I believe, asked about long COVID. And I talked about a few of the treatments, things to do for your adrenals. So just once this recording, I copied the link. Go back if you didn't hear it, hyperbaric chamber, things like that. Linda says, will you please post these supplements? I will post the link that I use, specifically for the company that I use for all my supplements. I'm going to say full disclosure, I'm now affiliated with them, but I had such a tough time with every single supplement. I couldn't take anything. But it's kind of like what Claudia is saying. I couldn't tolerate a thing. I got so much pain from any supplement. I had severe right upper quadrant pain. And this company is the only company, once I switched over, that I could tolerate all of their supplements. They are very, very holistically, organically grown supplements, and they are super clean. No fillers, no preservatives, no dyes, nothing. They even grow their own herbs and grow them holistically. It is just an unbelievable company. So I will post it in the links, but I have used their oxy powder. I use all their vitamins, from vitamin C to zinc to quercetin, to magnesium to zinc, turmeric. I use their turmeric. And they even have a liver flush, which is like a liver cleanse system. And when I was so sick, I did 7 liver cleanses. And that helped me immensely, immensely. Again, I was monitored by the naturopathic doctor of that company, and he kept tabs on me. And I was working with a functional medicine doctor. So please make sure that you're working with different companies, and I'm sorry, with different practitioners. The good thing about this company is that they do have 1-800 support that they can provide with all your questions and things like that. And so they were very instrumental in my liver cleanses, and then I was able to tolerate all the supplements, and it really just got so much better for me, where my body was not sensitive and reacting. So I will post all that once I finish here, and I will send you that. In fact, I think I should be able to post it right now just from my laptop. Let me see if I can get to that. Yeah, here we go. I'm just gonna copy it and paste it. And like I said, now I just, I am all about this company, and it was life changing for me. It's the only supplements I could handle. So I posted it in the comments. Like I said, I'm affiliated with them now. They are a fantastic company. And their B12 is fantastic. I do their B12, and at the peak of my illness, I had such low B12 levels, and within 3 months, my B12 went from 300 to 900. And my doctor was shocked. Like, what did you take? It's the only vegan B12 out there, and they are the only ones who have a vegan vitamin D, which is also a very good one. So I'm on it. My kids are on it. I'm a big proponent of it, and I posted it down in the links. But I only use their products. I did their liver cleanses, and I did their detox with Pat. I did their whole protocol. I was so sick that the naturopathic doctor there put me on their entire protocol for parasite cleanse, and they put me on their liver cleanse, and they put me on their, there was another cleanse that I did. But anyways, they kind of handheld me through all of it, and I will forever be grateful to them. So I think that's it, guys. I know there's a few more questions that we may need to get to, but we'll try to get to them next time. If you guys want to do this again next week, I'm happy to do so. I will post another poster, live Q&A. Please post your questions in there early. That way, by the next week, we already had about 15 questions today, so I want to try to get to as much as I can. As much as I can help, and as much as I can support you guys through this journey. I know it's an expensive process, and I've done it, been there, done that. So at least the basics that I can help with. I always say this, again, this is for educational purposes only. Educate yourself, go out, work with your practitioners, and get then the help you need. And I wish you guys a happy, happy healing journey, and sending all the healing energy your way. And hopefully we will see you guys again next week. Bye.